There we go. Welcome everybody to another Pick and Pay Winemakers Table, the first Pick and Pay Winemakers of the year. I was saying to Marco that I can't believe that we haven't had more of these already. It feels like this whole year has started off with an absolute bang, and I feel like we've spent about 3 months already taking this year. But welcome everybody. Not only is it the first Winemakers, it's also Valentine's Day. Eh?
There you go. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, here we go. There's the love. Eh? There's the love. Well, I hope everyone's received all their boxes from Pick and Pay online for delivering those. It's going to be a really, really fun evening. I'm sure that there are also some guys that have got some full boxes that are going to be sharing this evening, and also some single boxes for the lovebirds who are going to be spending a really great evening together. So very exciting. As I said, thanks very much to Pick and Pay Online for delivering all those hampers to each of your houses. And also, while we're in the mood of thanks, thank you very much also to Pick and Pay Home for kitting out our studio kitchen as well. They've got some incredible products from their home range. They've also got this day range, which is absolutely incredible. So if you have a look around, we've just got some really great glasses and some really cool cutlery and crockery that we're using. So thank you very much for that as well. And yeah, while we're on that as well, thank you very much, Marco, the head viticulturist of KWV. It's going to be very interesting chatting to Marco. I was chatting to him earlier. Couldn't get a word in edgeways, but very, very interesting. It's quite interesting that you're also on the viticulturalist side, not only on the winemaker side. So we've got some really good insights. And we're also going to learn how to make 2 incredible dishes, along with basically pairing them with 3 incredible wines. Before we head over and just chat a little bit to Marco, I just want you guys to get a few little things ready in your kitchen. Make sure that you've got your water boiled, because we're going to be steeping some wild mushrooms in some water to make some incredible stock. So do that right away while we're getting everything organized. Make sure that you take everything out of your boxes that we have delivered. Everything is nicely labeled. We're going to be making a beautiful little starter, and we're going to be moving on to a really nice risotto. So we're going to be maybe chopping and changing exactly what we do. Risottos take a little while to cook. So while we do that, get your water boiling. And while we do that, Marco, very, very nice to have you here, and welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Thank you for having me in your kitchen.
Yeah.
John, I appreciate that, Chef. And obviously, thank you to Pick and Pay and Pick and Pay Online for having us.
Perfect.
It's fun to be here. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And I hope you're having a good one. Yeah, I'm really excited about the pairing. I'm excited to see what the pairings look like. They read well.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. And to go through a couple of my favorite wines. Yeah. 3 of my favorite wines really tonight, and 2 bubblies. So you know, it's always fabulous when your evening starts with bubbly and ends with bubbly. I think that's about the best way to do it.
I totally agree with you. And bubbly's definitely moved on from just a straight celebratory drink. It's something that you can drink in the beginning of the evening, in the morning if you want to, lunchtime. So yeah, very versatile. And what's a better way of doing it with 2 then, huh?
Exactly. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, KWV and Laborie and Roodeberg, I mean, these are all brands that have been around for a long time. Yes. KWV has been going since 1918. We're situated in Paarl.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm the viticulturist, a part of the viticulturist team.
Yes.
And we're in harvest at the moment.
Yeah, busy time.
Yeah, I've just, the team, in fact, the red wine team are busy, still probably busy offloading grapes, and came through there now. So that's where we are now. It's harvest. And we're busy harvesting some of the grapes that go into the Roodeberg back.
Amazing.
It's coming from Swartland and Wellington right now.
Got you.
So the Durif and the Tanat, these might be varieties you don't know, haven't heard of before, but they're in there and they make a difference. They're impact players. They're part of that. Like your food, you know, if you add this element, it suddenly bang, it changes everything. So that's what it's about. And we're very excited for it. Laborie is situated in Paarl. The property was given to the Taillefer family. They were French Huguenots at the time by the Dutch, so it's been going since the 1700s.
Yeah.
And they arrived with winemaking sort of expertise and history, right, from France. And it's interesting to me when I went into the history of the Laborie farm that in the 1800s, it was actually quite famous in Europe for making wines similar in character to the champagne.
Got you.
But champagne was still wine then. And so was the
bubbly revolution hadn't happened.
Not yet. And so that came later. But it's still now making champagne style wines, because Laborie is all planted under Chardonnay and Pinot Noir mostly.
Exactly. Interesting.
To make the bubbly. So that's what we're about today.
Good. Well, I mean, I think that it's very interesting. As you said, we can certainly chat about the bubblies. We can talk also about this incredible iconic brand, which is Roodeberg, and I think it's been something almost like 75 years that this brand has been around.
1949, really? Dr. Charles Niehaus, the chief winemaker at the time of KWV, came up with this Roodeberg blend, the first Roodeberg blend. And at the time, most people were quite Francophilic. They followed everything that the Europeans do, right? So if France did it like this, then it's a Bordeaux blend, and you blend those varieties, and you blend those varieties for your own blend. You don't muck about, and that's exactly what he did. He was a bit of an experimenter, a guy that was a bit of a maverick, with a sense of humor too, apparently. And he started to bring Shiraz and Cabernet together, which are, was kind of, no, Shiraz is from the Rhone, and Cabernet is from Bordeaux. What are you doing? Yeah. But then he did that, and then with things like Cinsault and some other interesting varieties. And to this day, 75 years later, Roodeberg has obviously grown in the time. It's a brand all over the world. There's some places that you wouldn't, I mean, Sweden, for example, Roodeberg's big in Sweden. It's been big in Sweden for years and years and years. So if you ever have any Swedish visitors, you give them a bottle of Roodeberg, they'll know it. They know it well. Amazing. So it's been all over the world, the Roodeberg blend. And in 2018, we had a fire at KWV, a terrible fire, and it burnt down our bottling lines. And thank goodness nobody was hurt in the exercise. But there was some barrels of wine that got sort of heat damage and char and all this kind of thing. And we thought, this stuff's going to be a write-off, right? So we go look at it and go, well, what are we going to do with it? And yet it had this sort of character, this bit of extra concentration, bit of jammier, kind of almost fruit to fruit. And so that was born from there. It's been a lot of R&D since then, but it was a surprise that came out of fire. So quite a lot of,
it's amazing.
Kismet.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get that, and when we taste it, that's going to be very interesting to kind of, let's tell that story about how that jamminess and stuff comes through. But what I want you guys to do now is we do need to get one of the elements for our risotto going. So, as I said, we're going to do a little bit of jumping around to make sure that we get the timing correct. So what I want you guys to do, I've already asked you to boil your kettle. I want to take this little packet of these beautiful wild mushrooms, and I want you to toss that into a bowl. You can put it into a jug if you'd like to. I've just put mine into a bowl. And then you'll also find another little container with a little bit of stock in it. And I'm just going to pour that in there too. And now what we're going to do is we're going to steep these mushrooms in some boiling water to create a really nice stock. So I'm just going to grab a kettle of boiled water, and I would say you could probably do about 3.5, maybe even 4 cups of water. So this is about 1 liter of water. So I'm pouring that in, and this is basically going to end up being our stock for our beautiful risotto. So that's the first step of that done, and that's easy. And all that's going to happen now is we're just going to leave that to sit and to marinate, and for those mushrooms to rehydrate, and for us to create a really nice stock. We'll taste it a little bit later. We'll see if it needs a little bit of salt, but that is what we'll do. So that sits aside. Now we've done that. We've done a little bit of mise en place already. We're going to start with our starter. So I love the starter because it's just lots of different elements. And I think that when we were first tasting the wine as well, it kind of came together that I think this would be quite a nice marriage. So first of all, I think let's taste this wine. So what do we got here?
We have the Laborie Blanc de Blanc.
Okay.
So this is a Laborie Blanc de Blanc. It's a 2019 Laborie Blanc de Blanc. So I should immediately tell you, we're giving you old white wine. Old white wine, 6 years old.
6 years old. That's so 6 years in the barrel.
Right. So it spends time on what we call under crown. Okay. So this is a method champenoise.
Okay.
What we call method classique, the classic method of the Cape.
Yeah.
And that is the classic method of the same method as champagne for making wine, which I'm going to just help us with it.
There we go.
There we go.
Something like the angel's kiss or something.
Isn't it wonderful? Yeah. So we make the base wine, and this is made from 100% Chardonnay.
Got you.
So Blanc, white from white.
White from white.
It's always Chardonnay, and it's always 100% Chardonnay in terms of the naming convention, if you will. This particular Chardonnay, we use a vineyard in Wellington, which seems counterintuitive, but it really is fresh and zippy because it's picked so early, all right? And then there's another vineyard that we use that's on the sort of lime-rich soil in Robertson.
Got you.
And so those two come in, we make the base wine, and then the base wine is bottled inside this bottle.
Got you.
A little sugar and yeast is added, and a beer cap comes on. Boom. And then we lie it down, and we put it away. Now it's under crown, and a second fermentation is happening here.
And that's when you talk about on the lease.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in that process, what happens is that yeast is going to eat up the sugar.
Yeah.
And it converts the sugar into alcohol, a little bit more alcohol, another percent.
Yeah.
Say. So it starts out at about 10% and ends at about 11.5, something like that. But it not only converts into alcohol, it releases a little heat. It's okay, we keep it in a cool place. And CO2.
And that's where you get your bubbles.
But there's nowhere for that CO2 to go. Exactly. It's blocked up here with this beer cap, right?
Yes.
And so it impregnates into the wine. So that process takes about 6 months.
Got you.
But from there, when you leave it on the lees, on that yeast sediment that's now in the bottle, lying flat, so that most of it's getting contact.
Yeah.
Those yeast cells over time will start to degrade and break apart, and they spill their contents into the wine. And the longer you do that, the more you get that brioche, toasty, bready, bakery kind of characters and like a creaminess on the palate.
Yes.
And that is a process we call autolysis. Autolysis is the process, autolytic character. It's a bit technical, sorry, a bit nerdy, but essentially the longer that you do that, the more of that character you get. So the minimum for this wine is 36 months, 3 years on the lees, but this particular 2019 that we've got at the moment is over 4 years on the lees, another year in the bottle.
Wow.
And this one is named in the top 50 best bubblies in the world, and a very famous magazine. The back end of last year, it's won lots of awards. But let's have some.
Let's taste it. That is what we want to do. So obviously the bubbly, I'm sure that everyone's kept it nice and cold. Very, very important, I think, when it's bubbly, it's not to serve it anything above 12 degrees, eh?
Yeah, I personally really like bubbly to be cold.
Yeah.
We're a warm country, right?
Yeah.
And so even if you serve your bubbly as cold as you can get, it's sort of 8 degrees, 7 degrees, it's very short, and then it starts to warm up in that glass anyway. So I like it quite cold.
Yeah. Cheers.
Ching ching.
Cheers, and cheers to everybody.
Cheers,
you can
everyone.
see some beautiful little bubbles coming straight off probably the little nucleus of that glass.
It certainly does. And it's interesting to me talking to you earlier about the elements that you chose for your starter, because a lot of those elements are here in this wine, and I love that about food and wine pairing.
Exactly.
Is you can go opposites, you can go matching, you can say, well, I want to pick some of those that are the same and some of those that are opposite. It's awesome.
Completely. All right, so this is a perfect opportunity for us to start our starter. So I want you guys to get a plate. I've got a smallish plate. You can just get a medium-sized plate, what we would call a starter plate. And I'm quite excited about this starter because there's lots of different elements going on, but it's also beautiful colors. We've got lots of nice textures, and this is what makes a really good dish. Okay, so you'll see you've got a packet of beetroot. They're cut up in different formats, which is exactly what we want. We want to have different textures and shapes and sizes. This is enough, certainly, for 2 starters. So we've got some really nice pickled beetroot. We've got what we call a carrot lox, which is basically, it's a pickled and smoked carrot. So it's got a nice kind of like smokiness to it. We've got some beautiful fior di latte, which fior di latte is basically, it's flour of milk. It's a soft, really lovely, creamy mozzarella cheese. We've got a little bit of some radish, a nice element which has got also give it a nice creaminess and also a little bit of citrus is a goat's cheese that we've whipped up with a little bit of lemon zest. And we've got a small amount over here of some strawberry gel, and we've got some toast. Okay, so let's see how we're going to put this all together. And this is also, I would imagine, is going to be a little bit of a plating exercise with us. You can obviously put it all onto the plate however you want, but we want to see beautiful plates, people, because we've also got a competition running where if you use the hashtag PNP Wine Club as well as the hashtag KWV Wines, you stand a chance to win 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points if you post that to social media. So use those hashtags, post those images to social media. We'd love to see what you're doing. Also, please do keep your cameras on. I'd love to see how things are going on in the kitchen, and you guys are bussing around. So I'm going to start with what we're going to do and how we're going to start presenting our starter. So I think the first thing what we'll do is we're going to start by putting on the main elements. And I reckon the main elements of this dish are going to be our beetroot. So I like to plate things maybe on one side, keep one side of the plate a little bit clean. Maybe let's work around. I'm going to do mine in almost like a little bit of a half moon around the one side of the plate. But you can do it however you want, but maybe if you do want to follow me, it'll be quite interesting to see. So I'm using some tweezers. You can just use a spoon or a little fork if you'd like to, just to keep your fingers clean with this beetroot. And use different sizes as well, and that's why we gave it to you. So I'm putting it along the one side of the plate. I'm going to do maybe two, one big one, one small one. If you want to cut it slightly, you can. I might just cut this at a nice angle. It doesn't need to be exact, and that's why we didn't make them into like little cubes or anything. You want it to be quite nice and rustic. So I've got 4 little pieces or 5 little pieces on my plate. I'm going to hold it up like that, so you'll see that it's kind of at a bit of an angle there. And now we're going to start building it with lots of different colors, lots of different textures, and lots of different flavors. All right, so what we're going to do next, I think, is I'm going to probably do a little bit of this beautiful bocconcini. So you've got 2 balls each. What I want you to do is just tear it a little bit, or you can cut it in half, but I'm just going to tear mine to give it a little bit of texture and a little bit of difference. I'm just going to place that in between at different stages there, and put one there, and then I might just cut this and just so it places nicely and put it at the end. You want to give it a little bit of space around the whole plate because we do have quite a few elements going on there. So just place it nicely. As I said, I'm just creating that little half moon over there. All right, we're going. Then
The going's looking good.
the going's looking good. Now we've got our carrot locks. You can do anything you want to. A lot of people will maybe fold it into a different shape and place it around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little cylinder with mine. So basically all that I've done is I've just rolled it up in a little cylinder. So just from the top, roll it around, and it actually sits very, very nicely into like a nice round little cylinder. So I'm going to place a couple of those fellas around there. If you want to cut it and make it smaller, you certainly can. And this is very much about getting creative and however you want to do it, but we do want to see it. So as I said, please do post to social media using those hashtags. If you've got a big carrot like that, I'm going to just cut mine down the center just to make a nice little ribbon. There we go, if you can see that, just like a little ribbon. And then what I'm going to do is you see that I'm just rolling it into a little cylinder, just like that. There we go, just a little cylinder, and I'm going to place it down on the board. It's already looking nice, and we haven't even started. It's got nice colors, the white is nice, it stands out nicely. It's going to be cool. All right, now what we want to do is we've got our whipped goat cheese. And I think the whipped goat cheese is going to work particularly well here because there is a nice citrus note to it, yes, but it's also got a very nice creaminess. And I think that there's still quite a nice balanced acidity to this wine that I think will cut through nicely with this.
Absolutely. When you described that, I was like, that's on the money, because our style and what we look for in these vineyards is lemons, limes, and that kind of citrus in the Chardonnay, and then the time on lees, that autolysis gives us creaminess. And that mixed with the lemon zest and the goat's cheese and the richness,
it's going to be good.
It's going to work.
All right, perfect. So now you've got your little piping bag of this whipped goat's cheese, and I'm just going to place dollops in and amongst and next to the beetroot at different angles. If you want to put one out into the center of the plate, certainly do that. It just kind of gives it a little bit more of a different feel. And I'm going to do about 6 or 7 of these little dollops, because that's going to certainly give our plate a nice little bit of a different angle. So I can show you mine now as well. I'll pick it up. You see it's got a few little dollops around there. It's looking nice. We still have a few things to, I'm going to just roll this one up slightly more. We've got a few more elements to do, but they're all going to come across very nicely. Okay, now, a few more elements of freshness. We've got our baby radish. Nice small little radish. I love using these things because they give a bit of freshness, a bit of crunch, and they look beautiful. So I'm just going to take it, and I'm just going to slice some very thin little rounds. And I do this very thinly because then also what it creates is you see a nice white center, and then you get that beautiful pink round side coming out of it, just like that. There we go. All right. And I'm going to do a couple of those, maybe 4 or 5 little ones. And that's going to be plated also in and amongst there. What I like to do is I like to get these, and I like to place them inside that goat cheese so they stand up like little coins on the plate. There we go. Nice little coins. You got some height. You got a little bit of different colors. All right. Looking good.
Looking great.
So then the second last thing we're going to do is this piping bag, which is a bit of a strawberry gel. I like the strawberry gel because it gives a little bit of tartness, also gives it a little bit of fruitiness, and that I think will work nicely, and it also makes the plate look quite beautiful. And that also, same thing, let's do some nice little dollops around it. When you dollop this, just hold it very still and then just lift it up slightly so you've got those nice little dots around there. It's looking cool.
They look like pearls.
It looks like nice little pearls. There we go. You can see it like that. Okay? It's all standing up beautifully. And now, the last little thing that we want to do is we want to give some crunch. And not only would we want to give crunch, but when we were actually developing this dish, we thought, how will this wine react to a little bit of yeastiness, a little bit of kind of brioche flavors? And we thought maybe toast would work quite well with that.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, that's mirroring exactly what some of the fundamentals are in the wine. So it's going to work like a charm.
Okay.
I really see this going down. For me, the Blanc de Blanc, one of the things that makes it so beautiful, is one of my favorite wines in our whole stable, is that it is such a food wine. It is. Yeah. It's so food friendly because it has that structure and the creaminess, and those things together. Okay. Wow, would you look at that?
Look at that. So that's just really, it's not only about the plate, but it's also about the flavor. But it is something that you could, it's so easy to do. You go to these fancy restaurants, and actually it does take a bit of time to plate, but you could replicate this certainly at home for some of your guests with some very, very simple ingredients, but just know how to plate it. And that's how it'll end up looking. So I'd love to see what you guys have done. Please do use those hashtags PNP Wine Club and hashtag KWV Wines, because we want to see it and we want to give you 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. So this is the exciting part of the time, because now we're going to taste the wine. Cheers again. And now it's the time to actually give this a little bit of a taste. And that's going to be interesting. So I'm going to hand this over to you.
And I'm going to try not to wear it.
Exactly. I'm going to give you a little spoon if you want to.
Thank you.
Is that all right?
That's perfect. I'm going to try and collect as many elements as I can into a bite.
There we go. And that's important as well, because even though there are different elements in the plate, it's very good to eat them all together, because you'll certainly get all the flavors coming through.
Mm. Chef. Well played.
Good. Good. So what did you guys think of that at home? If you have done it, all the different elements coming together, I think that you definitely get those brioche toasty notes from the Chardonnay, and especially that it's been on the lease for quite a long time. You certainly still get the main characteristics, I think, of the Chardonnay, which actually is still very zesty, and it's got some nice citrus notes in it too, and that comes across very nicely, and it's well balanced, I think, with the goat cheese. A little bit of tartness, a little bit of smokiness, a little bit of freshness, a nice summer starter.
It's a fabulous starter. The flavors are incredible. I've got to just give you some kudos on some of these elements here. The carrot lux is exquisite, and with the pickling on the beetroot, really that works fantastic. But it's interesting for me how the bubbly went from quite creamy and quite round, and when we have those creamy elements in there, it reverted and went all the way to sort of like lemons and limes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Completely, and which is wonderful because it becomes almost more sort of bracing and palate cleansing, and I'm ready for another bite kind of thing, you know.
Fantastic.
Which is what the purpose of bubbly is. It's supposed to be something that gets you going. It gets your mouth salivating, your stomach rumbling, and you go, oh well, it's time to eat. It's time to nibble something, and that's traditional as bubbly and canapes. And look at this.
Fantastic. Good. Well, I'm glad everyone enjoyed that. I hope that you did too. If you've got any questions, please do ask us or ask Marco or myself. We will obviously take some of the really best questions if there's some really great questions, and we might also throw you into the chance to win those 300 rands worth of Smart Shopper points as well. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. We're going to now start our main course, and while we do that, we've obviously, being a risotto, we've got a lot of stirring and we've got a lot of work to go through, and we'll do that. And while we're doing all the stirring, we can certainly start unpacking the Roodeberg wine as well. Okay, lovely. So we're going to get straight into it and look at the main ingredients of what a risotto really is. It's obviously a rice dish. It's an Italian rice dish. It uses some rice, which we call, it's a short grain rice. It's a borio rice, an Italian rice. It contains a lot of starch, and that starch we use to basically make a creaminess of our risotto. So get your pot, get a medium pot. It doesn't need to be so big because we're going to, obviously, if it's for 2 people, you don't need a huge amount. If it's for 4, you can use a slightly bigger pot. All right, so first things first is the base of any risotto. Step number 1, it's your onion, all right? That's how we're gonna start it off. So I want you to get your pot onto a medium heat, not too hot. We don't want to burn that onion at all, but we just want to slowly cook that onion down. So take your onion. I reckon you probably need half an onion. So slice it down the middle, just like that. All good? All good, all good? There we are. Place it on its side. You can take off the end, just the end, so you don't have that last little bit. Turn it around, take the other side off. I'm pretty sure that you guys are all foodies at home and you pretty much know how to slice and dice an onion, so I'm not going to get too technical about that, but I'll just slice my onion the way that I've always have, straight down like that. I turn it around like this, and I go into there once, and I go into that again, and then I dice it like that. Everyone's seen it before. It's no big mystery how to slice an onion. But you just want to finely slice it. There we go. I'll put that to one side, like that. And now your pan is probably on a medium heat. I'm going to turn mine down ever so slightly. We've got a bit of butter here for you guys as well. So inside the tub, we've got some butter. I want you to use half of it now, because we're going to use the other half later to basically thicken and enrich our risotto. All right, if you want to use some olive oil, you can certainly do that too, or some normal oil. I like to actually combine both of them normally, and I do that just so the butter doesn't burn. You have a nice combo of the olive oil and the butter, but if you want to go just plain richness, just use half the butter. So I'm going to pop that into my pan, and that's going to start sizzling nicely, and I'm just going to get that half onion into my pot, and we're going to basically just start sweating that down. Very, very simple. Sweat that down. Make sure it doesn't burn too much. Yeah, take one funny little piece out there. There we go. And just keep turning it so that doesn't burn. Okay. So sweat off those onions, and then you'll see also you've got some garlic. And the garlic, you're going to say, should I not put this in at the same time with the garlic and onions? Garlic will burn before the onion does. So you've got a nice little clove of garlic. Everyone buys these fancy contraptions about how to peel a piece of garlic.
Hands work, there you go.
Boom. You just smash it and you take it off. There's no need to buy a silly contraption from Verimark. All right. Take off the end of the core, last little bit of the garlic, and then just slice it up very, very finely if you want to. Or, like, listen, it's all going to come together so nicely anyway that you might as well just give it a little bit of a chop. You don't need to do it super fine. Slice it is 100% fine too. So basically, you're just going to sweat off those onions, and you're going to put your garlic in now as well. All right, so now, once you've got this going, I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of catch up a little bit. And while that is sweating off, I think it's time to open up our Roodeberg. Roodeberg Black.
Absolutely. While I'm opening the bottle of Roodeberg, we talked a little bit about temperature when we spoke about the bubbly in terms of the blanc, and I said, look, you know, you don't need to try and hit a 12% or a 12 degrees or a 10 degrees. Make it as cold as you can.
Yeah.
We generally live in a hot country. Now, for Roodeberg Black and for reds, I'm going to say something that might seem controversial.
Okay.
And I hope not to upset anybody.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Room temperature for red wines is really not a great idea.
No, sure.
So because we live in a country where room temperature is often 28 or 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
So at that point, Chef, it's no longer wine, we're busy with wine soup.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and what happens is the warmer you make the wine, the more the alcohol volatilizes, and the kind of more angular and astringent and hectic the tannins and everything become.
Yes.
The cooler you make the wine, the softer the wine becomes. So I always say to people, look, think about temperature and wine as the difference between soft lighting and a nice mirror in your bathroom.
Yes.
Versus the change room mirror in a department store. You know, that one, or the mirror in an airport. You know, that's sort of really shocking. I didn't realize I looked this bad. That's what happens when you make it warmer. So cooler is a better idea. That's the first thing. Then I'll pour some so that you have something.
Yeah. That'd be great.
There we go.
Okay.
So Roodeberg Black, as I said earlier, was a relatively new product. We've had the Roodeberg blend, the classic blend, since 1949, and in 2018 we had this terrible fire that swept through and ultimately destroyed our bottling lines. And there were these barrels that got sort of caught in that, and out of that, we saw what we thought we were going to throw away completely. We saw it actually got an interesting character.
Interesting.
And from there, we started to do some R&D into Roodeberg Black. So Roodeberg Black, it was also, we found that out of that wine came something that where the tannin wasn't horrible and hard or harsh. I say horrible and hard for a lot of people entering into wine and trying to get to know wine. They find red wine tannins to be quite difficult to deal with. And we were talking earlier, and I said, look, I've got a trick for everybody. There's an easy cheat, a piece of protein, right?
Yeah.
So if you eat a piece of protein, cheese, biltong, doesn't matter, but a piece of protein, the protein will occupy the same place on your palate that the tannin will. And so if you are somewhere and you've got this really tannic wine and it's kind of, this is going to be hard work, get some protein in your mouth and then have the wine, changes the game, suddenly the wine's soft.
Interesting.
All right, so it's a little magic. But this is also magic food and wine pairing, right?
Exactly.
We can do it at home, we can do it in your mouth and have fun. So here we wanted the wine to have lots of structure, have lots of concentration, be a really premium top end thing.
Yes.
But also kind of be generous and soft and round. And so that was how we work with barrels. It spends 20 months in wood. Some of it is just, good barrels that we put the wine into, of French oak. But some of the French oak, we get a bit techie, we get a bit nerdy there. And they do some of the toasting with infrared. And they're able to toast to such a specific point that oak, the kind of flavor profiles that it's going to bring onto the wine is quite special.
Amazing.
So those things come together. We are busy harvesting, as I said. We're busy harvesting some of the elements for this out of the Swartland and out of the Wellington region at the moment. And we do this quite ripe. We look for fruit that's and vineyards that we farm them to be quite ripe. We're looking for that really generous fruit, almost jammy, a little bit of that dried fruit sort of character that comes through, and lots and lots of concentration, because it's going to get quite a lot of oak.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it needs to be able to stand up to that. And then it must have some generosity of fruit. So that's what we want. We want it to be generous. You must be able to put it in your mouth and go, this is lekker.
Exactly.
And that's
it.
it.
It is. I'm just going to quickly stop you, because now at the moment, quickly, we just need to make sure that we're following the steps of this. So I'm sure that your guys have, your onions have cooked off nicely now. So the next step is to basically get also some of this really nice rosemary, and that just gives it a nice sort of bold flavor. You've got your garlic and you've got your rosemary. You can just pop that into the pan nicely. There we go. And just give that a little bit of a mix. It doesn't need to cook off too much, because the next step it's still going to cook. And this is the important part. So now we've got our rice, this arborio rice. And now when you were talking about toasting, it kind of clicked with me as well. The next step of this as well is to toast your rice. And this is the step. So you've got your butter and your onions going. Some of you added a little bit of olive oil. Now it's time to toast that rice. So you're going to pop all of that into a pan. And this certainly is going to feed 2 people. So that's going to be a double portion. And what you're going to do is you're going to mix it around. And in that dryish pan, it picks up a little bit of that oil, picks up a little bit of that butter. And basically what you're doing now is you're toasting that rice. If you want to, I'm going to put mine up slightly, just slightly higher heat. There we go. And interesting for this one, what we're going to do is normally you would add a white wine. You can certainly add also a red wine. And I think that the marriage of this is going to happen with the utilization of this as well. So I'm going to ask you, if you can, to top me up ever so slightly. And we're going to add a little touch of, thank you so much, of the Roodeberg to this, because now where we're going is this is nicely toasting in your pan. And we're going to start the initial stages of this risotto, of how it starts absorbing flavor. So I would say a good nice little glug of that into your pan. You can hear mine is sizzling nicely. And what you want to do is you just want to cook that down ever so slightly.
Always cook with good wine.
Always cook with good wine. That's very, very important.
Always cook with good wine. All of your ingredients should be fabulous. They shouldn't be have a nasty one in there.
It's never a truer word that's been said. A lot of people go, I need to get some cooking wine, and they get an old box wine that's been sitting in the cupboard for 25 years. You're going to ruin it. All right. So we're going to continue talking a little bit about the Roodeberg. But while I'm going to do this, because some of you might be going a little bit faster than me at the moment, your things might be cooking a little bit quicker, the basic technique of making a risotto is, now that this wine has now cooked off and you've cooked off the alcohol and you're left with the beautiful flavors of the wine, what you're wanting to be doing is you constantly want to be stirring this. And the reason why you do this is because, as explained before, the rice has quite a lot of starch around it. And you want to basically be rubbing that starch off to create a nice creamy texture. So what you want to do is, now that that's done, you've got your broth here. Give it a taste if you want to. If you do want to add a little bit of salt to it, I like to have something which is quite, it's not too bad, but I'm going to add a little pinch of salt to that, because I just want it to be quite nice and flavorful. So I'm adding a little pinch of salt to it anyway. And now this stock, you're going to add slowly but surely. Once it dries out, you add a little bit more stock. Once that dries out, you're going to add a little bit more stock, continuously stirring the whole time. So I've got a ladle. I'm just going to pour that in. There we go. 2 or 3 ladles at a time. Please do also put the mushrooms in there, because that is part of the dish, and just continuously stir. Stir until that evaporates. Add your more stock. All right, so while we do that, everyone knows what to do. This is going to take about 15 minutes or so to do. Add a little bit more stock. Keep your temperature so it does evaporate. Keep turning it. Okay.
And don't look away for too long.
Exactly. I'm going to continuously add and stir as good. We've got a really nice question here as well. Is this a once-off wine? Or are we going to have to burn the storage cellar every single year?
Yeah, you see and that was it. When we saw this was really interesting, we said, look, if we want to make this, we can't burn the cellar down every year. We're going to have to find another way to do it. So no, we make this wine now. Obviously, the fire was before COVID, so it gave us a little bit of time in that we had some chance to do some R&D and develop the wine and really get our understanding of what varieties we want to use in this wine, how we want to ripen them, what wood regime we want to use, what the sort of aging is we want to have for the wine. So we make this every year now. So this is a wine that is part of the KWV stable and should be available to you on the regular in Pick and Pay and Pick and Pay online. And in terms of what varieties we use here, this is a Cabernet Shiraz blend. So the main varieties, Cabernet and Shiraz, keeping with that sort of original Roodeberg thought process. Yeah. But then we've got a little bit of Pinotage. We've got Petit Syrah. I don't know if you know that variety. Petit Syrah, also known as Durif. Tanat.
Tanat,
another, and both of those varieties are from the south of France, although Durif, quite a lot of it comes from Australia these days. Now, I adore both of them because they come with so much structure, so much tannin, so much color, so much generosity of fruit. And the Tanat has got this incredibly high acidity, natural acidity. Now, we live in this hot country. We're talking about it being hot, right? So acidity is something we're always looking for. Same thing in food, chef.
Exactly.
We're always balancing things for a bit of acid.
Yeah.
And we're looking for that in the wine. So that it comes with natural acidity, which is great to have and helps with the aging of the wine, and then some Petit Verdot and a few other odds and sods. But it really is about bringing those varieties together and getting them blended into the barrels and harmoniously put together so that they're generous. Our big thing here is we don't want you to feel that you need to go and study something to understand the wine. It should be quite simple. Put it in your mouth. If it's lacquer, swallow, enjoy, have some more, rinse, repeat.
I totally agree, and I think that's also what the Pick and Pay Wine Club is about. It's about actually trying to get people to not be scared about wine, you know. And I think that this wine, like I've tasted it, and it's smooth, you know. It's really enjoyable. It's quite fruit driven as well, which is nice. Which I think is it's a nice sort of way to kind of understand what reds are about, and it's certainly something that shouldn't make you scared about drinking red wine, which is awesome.
And that's what we want. We want to bring people into the wine world and not scare them off. You know, with sort of snobby concepts and that it should be quite simple, and the wine should come to you. And this wine for me certainly does. I gotta tell you, we're doing it with this, but my favorite, guilty admission here. My favorite thing to do with Roodeberg Black is boerewors and wings off of a braai with a barbecue sauce. I mean, that's me. If it's just me, I can settle down with a bottle of Roodeberg Black and that. So it's that kind of wine. It just keeps on giving.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to ask for another little top up because I threw half of mine into the risotto.
Luckily, we have a little.
There we go.
So what temperature-wise, what I did with this is I put it in the fridge first.
Yeah, I noticed that when it arrived, it was cooler.
It was cold. So I'm not scared to refrigerate red wines. Yeah. And then take them out of the fridge and then pour and so on, because it'll warm up in the glass. Yeah. And it's warm here. But if the wine starts out cooler, eventually you're drinking it at about 16 to 18 degrees, and that's where we want to be. 16 to 18 degrees, which is European cellar temperature rather than
hot South African summer.
Exactly. 32 degrees.
All right, so I'll show you guys what mine's looking like at the moment. You can see that you certainly are getting a nice sort of creaminess coming through there. I've got mine on a higher temperature because you don't want to just be, it's got to be evaporating every single time. So I'm stirring it continuously, and you'll start to see that starch is certainly coming off the end of the rice. And I know that a lot of people will tell you, I'm sure everyone's heard that you have to cook risotto rice to the perfect way that it still has a bit of a bite, but it's still creamy. So we're going to try and achieve that. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time because I know that I don't want to basically rush you either. So each spoonful that you put in, give it a good stir. And yeah, so also interesting, we got a question here which is quite interesting. What are the common mistakes of a risotto? So I'll tell you what the mistake is, what a lot of people think is the way you make a risotto. They think that you should make a risotto by adding cream at the end. And they do that because they want it to be a creamy risotto. You do not need to be adding cream to a risotto. If you're stirring it enough, if you add some butter at the end, if you add a nice amount of Parmesan at the end, you're going to get that creaminess anyway. You do not need to be adding some cream basically at the end. That's a common mistake that people do make as well. And then what I also like to say is that at the end when you are plating it up, you want it to be runny. You want it to be sitting on a plate, on a flat plate. You don't want to have a ball of risotto that is hard and is like basically in a big mountain of risotto. You want it to be slushy and creamy and soft. And so that's my two tips basically of a risotto. All right, keep stirring, people. That's all I can say as well.
Keep stirring. Keep stirring.
Yeah.
I often find, obviously I'm from Italian heritage, but I'm South African, right? And so when I'm with Italians, the way they like their risotto is slightly undercooked for me.
Yeah.
It's a bit on the chalky side, in terms of that bite.
Yeah.
And when I serve them risotto the way I like it, then they no, it's overcooked. You've overdone the risotto.
It is nice to have that bite. It is nice to have that bite. Else it becomes mushy, and that's also what happens if you do overcook a risotto. Then it becomes one big mush. And so we'll serve this one. I'll take it off for you guys at a point where there certainly is a bite. And that's what you do. You want to have that little bit of a bite into it. You want to have some texture. And the other thing which you'll see what we're going to do later is we're going to start adding little bits and pieces to this risotto to kind of give it a nice kind of different element. If you want to taste it as you go, certainly nothing wrong with that. Still a little bit of time to go. We've still got a little bit of liquids here. And we're going to make our way through this as well. Keep cooking it. I've got it on a nice heat. Probably, as I said, it's probably going to take about 15 minutes of actual cooking. Keep stirring. All right,
So I said we're busy harvesting some of these elements right now. And that's the Durif and the Tanat that are busy coming in from the Swartland and from Wellington at the moment. So that's quite exciting. This vintage, though, if you're interested, is a little later. So I can give you an early vintage report. We're still busy with it, but it's at least 10 to 14 days later than last year.
Interesting.
So it's significantly later vintage.
Why is that?
Well, it's been cooler. We had a lot of late rain, winter and early spring, and it's been significantly cooler right the way through. And it's sort of counterintuitive because it's sort of the degree days. So it's a way of measuring things are higher, and so the degree days insects breed go through generation breeding. Based on degree days.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Western Cape, if you're in the sort of Cape Town or the Boland, at the moment, you might notice that right now things are getting a bit buggy. There's lots of everything buggy going on because they're kind of going through those generations and exploding exponentially.
Yes.
But so it's a little warmer from that point of view, but the evenings have been cooler, significantly so. We've had colder mornings, and the maximum, the extreme temperatures haven't been so wild and for so long. So I can tell you that my tip for everybody is remember 2025, because it's going to be a crackerjack of a vintage.
Good to know.
I keep every day I'm walking around in the vineyards and I'm saying, look, this to me looks a lot like 2009. And 2009 was sort of the best vintage in living memory.
Yes.
So. Remember 2025,
it's gonna happen.
It's going to be a crackerjack of a vintage, I'm telling you.
Fantastic.
The wines will go a long way. The acidities are fantastic.
Okay, I reckon we're at a point of some nice al dente risotto. If you now are going to see, you feel like it might need a little bit of thickening around the sides. You still got a little bit of water in there, or a little bit of stock. Keep stirring it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the rest of that butter into it, and that's going to start giving it a nice thickness and some nice richness. So add all of the butter back in and make sure that you stir, and that's going to start giving that really nice richness to it as well. Okay, now, as I've said before, we're going to start adding some more elements. We've got some Parmesan cheese as well. So this Parmesan cheese is also going to give it a nice thickness as well. So there we go. I'm going to keep stirring it. And I've got a little bit of a grater, and this grater is going to give some nice fine gratings of the Parmesan. You can use a normal grater. It's just good to get it in there. I'm going to use, I would say, about half of this block, because the same thing, I want to use the rest when we get to our plating stage as well. So give that a good mix up, and we're going to keep stirring that nicely. There we go. And now it's coming together very nicely. It's going to move that over the side. There we go. It's getting nice and creamy. If you do need to add a little bit of liquid, you can, but it's almost coming now to our plating time. So I'm going to turn mine down quite a lot, and it's just going to simmer very slowly. I'm going to take this out because I don't need that anymore.
Smelling good, chef.
Smelling good.
It's smelling good.
Okay. It's time for plating up, people. If yours hasn't quite got there, don't you stress. You can keep cooking it. There we go. Mine has come up. Mine was cooking on quite a high heat, so I think it worked quite nicely. Okay, so now we're going to plate this up. I've got a nice little round bowl, and as I said, I want to. It's got a small lip. I don't want to basically make a big mountain. You can see it's nice and soft and smooth there. There we go. Add
No, that's our speakers.
internet issue kicking us out. So what I've done is I've just plated my dish here. All I've done is I've put it into quite a nice low-lipped bowl, quite a nice flat plate. It's very nice and soft. If you want to continue to cook yours a little bit longer, if you haven't quite got there, please do so. But what I'm doing now is I've just got a very small little thing of some sun-dried tomato oil, which I'm just going to place around there, and that's just going to give it a nice little freshness. Then this is something which I absolutely love as well, and this is called a pan grattato, which is basically a fried breadcrumbs. It's got some Parmesan cheese, it's got a little bit of garlic, and I'm just going to put that on top, and that's going to give this dish a nice crunch as well. There we go.
That pan grattato is a secret weapon.
It is a secret weapon, it really is. All right, then what we've got here, you'll see these little sage leaves. And these are crispy sage leaves that have just been fried, so literally just fried in a little bit of oil. We place that also around it. Just a couple sage leaves. You've got certainly enough risotto for 2 plates here, so enough of everything for 2 plates. And then the last little element, or the second last little element, we've got this really nice copper. And so this copper is basically some really dehydrated shards of copper, smoked copper ham, and that gives it a really nice element of some crunch, but also a little bit of salty texture. There we go. And now I always do this. I always end off my dishes with number 1 Italian dish, Parmesan. Nice little grating of Parmesan over the top. That's what we left it off with. And we've got a little bit of a lemon, and this just brings the life into this dish as well. So same thing, I'll just do a nice little bit of the lemon zest right on top. There we go. And there we have your dish, guys.
Wow.
It's got your wild mushroom risotto. It's made with some stock with those wild mushrooms. It's got some of the Roodeberg wine involved in there. It's got some Parmesan cheese, crispy sage, a little bit of sun-dried tomato oil, and it's got some crispy copper in there as well. So that is a dish for two for any Valentine's Day. I'm going to hand that over to you two, and you can do that little tasting.
Wow. I certainly will, Chef. I've been watching this happen next to me.
Yeah.
With anticipation.
Please do make sure that you're also taking photos of your dish. We'd love to see what you have to do. If you want to take a little bit of time and cook your dish longer, 100% fine. You've seen how I've plated it. You've got your beautiful wine. See how those two dishes work together, or how the wine and that food work together.
Mm-hmm. The Italian in me, you know what I mean?
Hey. Wow. Good. Well, I'm glad. I hope everyone did enjoy that. As I said, you can continue to cook at home. There's two of you, it's Valentine's Day. Cook that a little bit longer if you want to. Sit down and enjoy that. But not only do we have a beautiful main course for you, we've got a little treat that's also been popped into your boxes for a very nice Valentine's little treat, which is also available from Lindt. So thank you very much, Lindt, as well, for these little chocolates. And we've obviously got a beautiful last wine, which we really must taste as well. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to try out that with these Lindt chocolates as well.
It's going to work.
It is going to work. All right, cool. So what do we have here, the last one?
So the last wine, and
I'm going to put this here later.
Yes, absolutely.
You can finish it up later.
And here, you know, you can play with everything. So you can also play with the Lindt chocolate and the Roodeberg and see what happens there. Yeah. Food and wine pairing is always about experimentation. But the last wine, let me get it out of the fridge.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Is the Laborie Rosé Nectar.
Yes.
And the Laborie Rosé Nectar, of course, it's another MCC, Method Champenois, Method Cap Classique.
Yeah.
This is 55% Pinot Noir, 45% Chardonnay.
Okay.
Now, where the Laborie was 100, where the Blanc de Blanc was 100% Chardonnay, this is Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, leaning a little heavy towards the Pinot Noir.
Yes.
And it is, this is 18 months in the lees, and on the lees where that was minimum 36 months, actually 4 years, it turns out, but this is 18 months. Why? Because we're looking for fresher, and we're looking for the sort of raspberry, strawberry, those kind of red fruit flavors. Yes. We want to keep it fresh. We're not looking for a lot of that autolytic, creamy character.
Yeah.
And it's a nectar. When we talk about a nectar in South Africa, I'm really proud of us that we've, as a country, got our own designation for demi-sec. So nectar, where you see nectar on a bottle, it means the same thing as demi-sec. And so that means a semi-sweet MCC. But let's get some in a glass. And
I mean, I think it's quite a nice thing that South Africa has kind of, you know, the same ways that we went away from Method Champenoise to Cap Classique. We've owned the category Method Cap Classique, and it's exactly the same way here. We don't need to be calling it a demi-sec. We call it nectar, and now you'll see a lot of the different bubbies around in that category are nectars, and it's what we've done as South Africans, and we've owned it, and why not?
Why not? Exactly. Have a look at that. Now, if that's not a Valentine's color, Chef,
there we go.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's me and you. I'm sleeping here tonight. I told you.
Upstairs.
Jig.
Cheers.
Oh yes. So that sweetness is there, and it's just bringing out all that sort of compote of berries.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling. And you know what goes pretty well with berries? Compote of berries?
Chocolate.
I don't know, but I think so.
All right, cool. Well, I think it's also a very interesting thing to see what would happen to the wine. I love doing food pairings where you taste the wine first, then you have something to eat, and then you taste the wine after. And this is also a very interesting one. I think in our little Lindt box, we've got a few different types. I don't even know which is which, but I think this is like the milk chocolate. Should we go milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Choice is yours. I think it's dealer's choice. Yeah.
I think we go milk. There we go. Let's go milk chocolate. Okay, so take this out and let's just see what it is. And for me, I love this category of the nectar, because a lot of people think that it's overly sweet, but it's not actually overly sweet. It's actually really it's balanced. You don't feel like it's too sweet.
Because we balance with acidity. So the important thing, same as the food, right? If you've got to balance sweetness and acidity always.
Yeah,
you know, and you balance the salt and fat, and so it's the same stuff here. It's about making sure that the acidity and the freshness is there.
Yes.
And then you can have the sugar because it's not perceived as overly sweet or cloying.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see, knowing now what the wine tastes like on its own, and then to have the chocolate and see how the wine changes.
Okay, well, let's do that. So everybody take your glasses of this beautiful Laborie nectar. Move it around. Have the chocolate in your mouth.
The chocolate is really good.
It's good. It's like a little ontploffende.
Haha.
Yeah. So clear your palate of that. Now taste and have a nice big sip.
And do you remember this wine was quite sweet just now? It was a sweeter wine?
It's dry.
It's bone dry.
Okay?
It's bone dry. I mean, this could be an extra brut now in
incredible.
terms of your perception. And
Yeah.
that's a kind of magic that happens when you pair food and wine. And it'll work with most desserts. So I mean, if you serve this with a creme brulee,
Yeah.
same story.
Same story.
You know, if you have the creme brulee and it's creamy and it's rich and it's got all the vanilla and the sweetness, and you go back to this wine and suddenly this wine is clean and cutting through all of that.
Exactly. And I think that's, especially with food and wine pairing, it's exactly like that. You often think to yourself that sweet and sweet won't work, but often it counterbalances each other and it actually comes through. But you guys must enjoy your evening. We can't be waffling on forever and ever, even though we could. We could have been here forever and ever. We really could have.
We could have done.
We could have done. But we've had a great evening. I hope that you guys have as well. Please, also, a few things. Number one is we've got another event coming up next month as well. It's the Albies Drift Winemakers Table. You will be receiving, as a Pick and Pay Wine Club member, the link to go and book that as well. So those tickets are online and ready to go. So please don't forget to do that as well. Another thing is we've got 3 winners. We've got 3 winners of our 300 Rands worth of Smart Shopper points. I'm going to hand over to Marco to read out those lovely winners who have either taken photos and posted to social media using the hashtag PNP Wine Club or hashtag KWV Wines, or they've asked us a really good question.
Congratulations to Chaitel Harry, Stuart Uckers, and Dave Ingram. Well done, guys.
Well done. Well done. And 300 Rands is going to get loaded onto your Smart Shopper cards. But not that is everybody. Everybody's a winner here. Not only have you had a great evening making some nice risotto, also listening to Marco's really great tales, tasting some incredible wines, you also received a very nice little Laborie wine stopper. So this is, if you don't, but I'm sure you will, you just, if you want to keep it for later tonight, not tomorrow, later tonight, or, I mean, the reason these stoppers work is you actually probably can.
Look, it'll hold it for a few days, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
They're quite amazing.
They are amazing, but you want them to drink it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And plus, because there's an opportunity coming.
There is an opportunity coming as well. So not only have you got that, but you've also received a voucher for 100 Rands worth off your next wine shop on Pick and Pay online, but you've also received the voucher, or it's loaded onto your Smart Shop card actually. So if you go in store, you get 20% off if you buy individual wines, but you also get 25% off if you buy a case, which is 6 wines. So a quarter of the price off, unbelievable value.
Cases store easier under the bed.
Exactly. All right, but thank you everybody, and thank you to Pick and Pay at Home. Thank you very much to Pick and Pay Online, and of course, thank you to the Pick and Pay Wine Club for putting on these amazing events. We will see you throughout the year at all these events. And if you do also want to come see us at festivals around South Africa, we've got 3 incredible food and wine festivals happening in Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg. The first event is happening on the 26th and 27th of April, if I'm not mistaken, in Cape Town. Durban's is happening in July, and I think September is happening up in Johannesburg. So we hope to see you there. But if you can't wait that long, obviously log on to our monthly Pick and Pay Winemakers tables to try some incredible wine, and learn to cook a little bit something and meet some really great people like Marco. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and it's been an honor to be here and to be in your homes. Thank you so much.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day. Finish that wine, have a party. It's Friday, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.